If you're like me, you love to talk about real estate investing, the acquisition, operating the property, and yes, the money you can make. But I know talking about legal protection is not something that is very interesting for many people, but it's something you need to get right to make sure that what you are doing is protecting you from losing your investments or worse, losing your personal assets. I personally do not want to expose myself to risk, and I want to be able to sleep well at night knowing that my assets are protected in the right way. So in this video, I'm going to walk through my legal protection strategy that I use to make sure that I'm in good shape regardless of what happens. Now, I'm going to keep this very high level because there's a lot of detail that can easily confuse you. And as we know, a confused mind does not act. So I'm going to keep this pretty simple. Now, I am not an attorney, but I've had some very reputable attorneys help me put this plan together. So I feel that I'm in a good spot with my investments. Everyone's situation is different. So if I've inspired you after this video to look at your investments and understand, am I doing this the right way? Then stay until the end because I'm going to share with you 2 law firms that I think do a really good job when it comes to advising on asset protection. Now, given this is the Immigrant Wealth Channel, perhaps you are not familiar with how things work in the US. So I'm going to start off by explaining a very important concept when it comes to protecting your assets, and that's an LLC. An LLC is a limited liability company. It's essentially a legal way to create a business entity that protects its owners from personal responsibility for liabilities and debts because it keeps it contained in that business. It makes the business you own or the investments that you own separate from you personally. The primary advantage to this is that you are able to protect yourself from lawsuits and liability because you have an LLC put in place. Now, you're going to see throughout this video that I use LLCs quite a bit. So I wanted to make sure that you understand that concept right up front. So one important thing to note is that every state has different laws regarding how LLCs can work. And so you'll see in my example here that I'm going to show you of what I've done that I mix that up a little bit to take advantage of what's available in the United States. Now let's talk about residential rentals. And I'll discuss both short-term rentals and long-term rentals. Now I'm going to tell you right now, there's absolutely no reason why you should not be owning your properties in an LLC versus in your personal name. Why is that? Well, let's look at this visual to help describe what I'm talking about. Now let's say you are an investor, and that's you up top there, and you own 4 residential real estate properties. Now, most people that have rentals in this fashion, they own them directly. So every home is in their personal name. Now, this is a really bad idea. Why is that? Well, let's say there's a lawsuit that is tied to that property that is going after you. If this is the way you own everything, then somebody that decides to sue and say they win a judgment against you, they're going to have access to not just every other property that you own in terms of those houses, but also all of your personal assets as well, because they're all owned by you. So that entire portfolio of rental properties and your personal assets are all exposed because of this way that's been set up. So this is not a good way to pursue, and I would not do this. And if you are doing this, I would seriously consider changing your strategy. Now, you heard me talk about LLCs and what they can do. Let me show you a little bit about kind of how this could work. Now, okay, I get it, Dan. We needed to have an LLC. Easy enough. So what if I just get an LLC and have it own the properties? Now, that can work better than the previous way that we just covered. Now, let's look at this example again. If there's a lawsuit this time, what happens? If there's a judgment, if they win a case against you and they can start pursuing damages and trying to get money from you, they have access to not only the value of that home, but also the value of all the other homes that you have within that LLC. So your entire investment portfolio in real estate is exposed because of that one lawsuit in that one home. And as you can tell, this is not a good strategy because although your personal assets are protected, they can't go past the LLC per se. All of the investments that are under this LLC are exposed, and that's not a good situation you want to be in either. So I wouldn't recommend this. An alternative approach is to have LLCs for each property. So in this case, what happens is each LLC owns one property, and then each LLC is owned by the one investor, which could be you. Now, there's some advantages to this because now, let's say we got that same lawsuit again in that home. What happens? All they have access to is what's within that LLC. So if they win a case against you and they need to collect some money, all they can do is go after the assets in that LLC, which is essentially that home. And all of your other assets are not exposed to that lawsuit, which is a great thing. So this could work, and this is probably something that many people do around the country, this first level of asset protection. Now, I've taken a slightly different approach based on the advice from my attorneys to add a layer in here. So I have An LLC that owns a property, one LLC owns one property, and instead of me directly owning that LLC is owned by another LLC that's based in Wyoming. And that Wyoming LLC is run by me. So why is this better? Well, because these LLCs are all state specific. So for example, my short-term rental in North Carolina has a North Carolina LLC. But because it's owned by the Wyoming LLC, there's some distinct advantages. I don't want to get into too much legal detail, but essentially one of the great things about Wyoming is that it has some of the strongest laws for LLCs across the country. So even if North Carolina doesn't have very strong LLC laws, or California or some other state, Wyoming is one of a handful of states that has very strong laws. One example of this is privacy. So in the LLC here in North Carolina, somebody can find my name that I own that LLC, and they'll know who I am. But in Wyoming, it is prohibited for anybody to know who owns that LLC. So that kind of privacy is important because the first thing an attorney is going to want to do when they're starting to look at a case to file against you is what kind of assets can they have access to. But first they got to identify who you are in the first place. And if they can't do that, are they going to spend much time working on this case? No, probably not. So this is a really nuanced approach that I think is really important and really helps set some distance from any potential issues that might come about. So these are some of the benefits and protections that you need to think about with setting up your asset protection strategy. It's not complicated, but you do need an attorney to help you walk through this. Hey, real quick, are you liking this video? Please click the like button so YouTube knows that this is valuable content and will share it with other immigrant professionals. Now, back to the video. Outside of LLCs, there's another important factor when it comes to protecting your assets, and that's insurance. The standard homeowner's insurance is just not sufficient for rental real estate. Why? Because in the eyes of an insurance company, you're running this as a business, as a commercial enterprise. It's not a primary residence that a family is living in. So you need to make sure you have the right insurance in place. This is especially true for short-term rentals because there's a lot of guests that go through and there's a lot higher chance of an issue happening. We have amenities like kayaks and stand-up paddle boards and hot tubs. And yes, we provide life jackets and safety equipment and things to make sure that the guest is using it in a safe way. But accidents may happen. I mean, what if someone gets hurt and they decide to sue? That's why, specifically for my short-term rental, I have a commercial insurance policy that includes liability coverage that'll protect both me and my asset in case of accident or damage. Now, this policy that I have costs about 3 times more than what the regular homeowner's insurance costs, so it's not cheap. But for me, I sleep much better at night knowing that I have strong insurance covering this property. Now, if you're starting to wonder, I've got a rental myself and I wonder if I've got the right insurance coverage. Well, be sure to talk to an insurance agent and one that understands rental real estate because they'll be able to guide you in the right direction. So there are a lot of nuances here and details that I did not go into. So as I said in the beginning, it's really important for you to talk to an asset protection attorney to make sure you're getting the right advice for your situation. And do not listen to a CPA. I have all the respect in the world for CPAs, but they know taxes, they know financials, but they don't know asset protection like an attorney would know. So make sure you talk to an asset protection attorney and not a CPA about this kind of strategy. I mean, would you ask your plumber about an electrical issue? No, you wouldn't. So make sure you stick with the right professional for the right job. Now, there are two law firms that I recommend when it comes to asset protection strategies. One is Jeff Hampton with the STR Law Guys. Jeff is a great guy. He was a former litigator, which means he used to sue short-term rental owners in his past life. So he knows the ins and outs and the tricks that attorneys might use to try to get after you as an owner. So his unique perspective, I think, offers him the ability to provide great advice when it comes to asset protection. The other is a firm called Anderson Business Advisors. They're led by three guys named Toby Mathis, Clint Coons, and Michael Bowman. And I've used this firm as well, and they're excellent. Both Jeff Hampton from the STR Law Guys and Clint Coons from Anderson Business Advisors put out a lot of content on social media and YouTube about asset protection. So this is something that now you're kind of interested in learning more about. You can definitely check out their YouTube channels. Below in the description, I'll include the contact info for both firms and a link to their YouTube channel so you can check it out. So I just skimmed through the surface in terms of what asset protection is, but I hope I got you thinking about your own properties and motivated you to move forward to perhaps make some changes if it's not set up in a good way. The reason I'm making this video is because I don't want anybody that watches this channel to lose money through real estate investing. It's just not worth it, and it can be avoided with the right strategy. So thank you for watching the Immigrant Wealth channel.